yes, happy Easter to everyone. Hopefully by now you all would have received your emails. Hey, Damo, I love the humour. Hopefully you all would have received your emails in relation to a bunch of stuff I'd sent out. I'd hoped to send that out a little bit earlier today, but it just didn't get there. So that's kind of got our agenda that we'll work through today. There's ultimately 3 bits to it. There'll be the employer, employee, self-employed stuff. I'd encourage everyone, hey Sky, I'd encourage everyone just to hit the Q&A chat bot again as they go, folks, as we talk through each of those things. There was a federal government economic stimulus piece that came into effect a week and a bit ago now, which is attached for you. And we're kind of going to run through that in order because it does a pretty good job for me of outlining all those things. So we'll do that. We'll talk about March BAS and I guess next steps from here. So it looks as though we've just had a truckload more people come in. So just as a recap, folks, bear in mind, I'll be doing this every week. The feedback seems to be quite positive around all that. We've actually got some feedback to share with you all, which will be quite funny, hopefully. Bit of light-hearted humour in amongst all this too. It's stuff out there. So the concept is to let everyone know that we need to be relatable. I'm actually kind of doing a bit of social media stuff with all of this as well. So if any of you use this thing called Instagram, which I'm finding out how to learn, and there's a specific page outside of MWM Advisory, which is at the Not So Boring Accountant. If any of you want to go and hit that, I'm going to be posting more and more information on that, both about my life, but also in particular about what I'm doing as a business owner to navigate these times and how to share that. So talking about sharing, folks, one of the wonderful things about Australia that's been exhibited for me during this entire process is we live in a democracy. Democracies are great. The reason they're great is everyone's entitled to an opinion. That doesn't mean we all need to agree on those opinions, but it also gives us a voice to do that. So what I thought I'd share with you is we've been receiving a bunch of feedback out of any of these sessions, which has been really great to see. One was a little bit weird. Some of you might remember our anonymous user last week who decided they wanted to get on the hate bandwagon pretty early on. Well, folks, guess what? Seems like they couldn't help themselves and they had to go a little bit further. So as a result, these things obviously remain anonymous. However, in true Australian format and values for us, having a bit of a chuckle and also realising that, look, guys, you put yourselves out there and from time to time as business owners, we have other people who want to boo us or say we're not doing a good job or complain about something. So as a result, I thought it might be enjoyable to kind of share some quality feedback, folks, that we received in the last webinar. So the entire format was unprofessional, anonymous user. Well, as a result, I thought it might be pertinent to crack out the $600 Polo Ralph Lauren tie that really doesn't get used at all. I think the last time it got used was 2 or 3 years ago. But I've got my half Windsor happening in that. Didn't necessarily attend a complete fancy private school, so I wasn't taught how to do a half Windsor. I'm not smart enough to do that. I'll settle at the half. But crack this bad boy out today. So hopefully that makes things a little bit more professional for you, anonymous user. Just because people are working from home, you don't get to let it all hang out loose and use foul language like and shit. Well, because of the state of affairs. Well, anonymous user, you'll be pleased to know that we're actually in the middle of creating some production for this. So folks, if you haven't already watched, all the episodes are actually up. They've been video edited. They've come up really good. We've increased the resolution. We've put some lipstick and makeup on it. It's there's only so much glitter you can put on a dog turd, but nonetheless, they've come up really well, folks. And if you want it to be a little bit more user friendly, then one of the benefits of that is we have a variety of interesting noises that get rid of my sound hurts, and it makes for a bit of humour. We've also got subtext in it. So that's been posted on our YouTube channel, which again, this one will be edited and that'll go on there. It'll be on our MWM channel on Facebook, and it's also on my personal one on the at the not so boring accountant. So subtitles are in there. Share it around, folks. You know, provide it to other business owners. Let them know what's happening with that. Actually had some of my competition. It's managed to get back to me in some way, shape, or form. That some of the competition might have a bit of sour grapes, that they got beaten to the punch around all these things, or apparently I'm not doing a good enough job, or I'm not professional enough. Well, hopefully this is out there benefiting a couple of people in some way, shape, or form. So we all know what it is. Thanks, anonymous user. Well, I dare say if you know what it is, you wouldn't be tuning in, would you? I don't necessarily think you do know how it is, because right now is the time for us to all band together. You know, we're Australians. This is what we're here to do. I expect professional or semi-professional webinar. See previous notes, read the tie. Hopefully that's up to your standards. Also, the speaker had no knowledge of using the system, kept shaking the camera, tiling the camera, and was dressed down. You bloody betcha. Guess how dressed down I am today. I still can't work the flossing out, but feel free to share it. Unfortunately, apparently I've got a bit of knowledge in the system. So notwithstanding, I don't know how to dress myself. That might help you. You'll also be pleased to know, anonymous user, that as of 2 weeks ago, we actually went and created a full digital production and studio functional facilities so that we can do a variety of things, including the rollout of my educational platform that will be coming out, and our 2-day, 15-hour events that we'll be running. But we didn't necessarily want to turn it on. This is all about demonstrating doing things on the fly, guys. I'm literally using an $89 web camera, and the concept is to share the love and get it out there. So if you want to hate, feel free to hate, just not here. What else did anonymous user have to say? Chose to do it on a Sunday. Obviously not to eat into his billable hours. Well, anonymous user, it would be helpful if you knew how to spell. Secondary to that, and folks, just in case you forgot it, in that episode, so I dare say anonymous user may struggle to spell. They also may struggle to listen. At the start of the last episode, I actually made an announcement to the market, which is that I will be working for free, pro bono, gracias, for all MWM clients for the month of April. So that doesn't matter whether you call me, email me, text me, Zoom me, carrier pigeon, smoke signal, you name it. I am here to support you through all of that at any hour of the day. I actually made that announcement at the start of that, which you may not have seen, anonymous user, or listened to. Maybe your head was too far up your ass. So that's what happened. If you don't recall getting an email from me during the week, I actually sent a personal email out to everyone titled Unprecedented Times. That also outlined the fact that I will be doing that, and what we as a business organisation are here to do and help navigate through all that. It's not a profiteering time for us in any way, shape or form. So that for me is an example, by being here on a Sunday, that you guys can see that we're always committed. We're also trying to provide it at a time that's more beneficial to you. So if you're not sure on that, I'm actually going to post a little video up at the end of today, which talks about it last week. Please don't hesitate to contact me. Please don't hesitate to contact the team. I'm there supporting the team in the background for any of the lifting that needs to get done, because let's face it, if you send something for me to do it, I'm at ensuring those finer little bits and pieces get done. That's why we've built an amazing team at MWM between our team leaders, accountants, client service coordinators, because they're here to support our businesses get through that. It's pretty staggering to actually add up what our client base alone makes in terms of a contribution to the Australian economy. We marked that out as at 30 June at in excess of 300 million. It's actually about 500 million that our client base contributes on a revenue basis, 500 million plus. We seem to have our client base also engage casual, part-time, full-time, or contracted-based roles that exceed 10,000 people plus. So I understand my obligations as a leader, and I'm here to help navigate through all of those times with you. And I encourage the partners of other professional service firms in the accounting space in particular, who have teams to support them, to look at how they can support their clients. So good on you for the billable hours concept, anonymous user. You're going to do it on a weekend, wear a polo shirt. Well, maybe not. we're not out in the sticks and your clients are not bogans. No, they're not bogans, but they're Australians and they're business owners. We're not for everyone. We don't profess to be here for everyone. However, we are here to support the right people. Shape up. Anonymous user, I would love to shape up. I dare say, anonymous user, if you'd like to have a push-up, squat, deadlift, pull-up, box jump, power clean, squat clean, handstand push-up, swim, run, bike, more than happy to have a shape-up concept. Probably don't want to get on the gloves because you'll beat the shit out of me, let's face it. I've got little ears. But nonetheless, the whole thing's ridiculous. Well, I'm really sorry that that's the case for you, anonymous user. Gave it 10 minutes. Nothing was new. You've heard it already. And based on this, you'd never recommend any of your clients to use MWM. Nice try. Well, we're really sorry that we disappointed you. So as a result, folks, why does Weet-Bix in the background have prevalence here? Something that I've always prided myself on in my world and my life is there are two things that are the breakfast of champions. One of them's feedback. So big ups and thanks very much, anonymous user, for your feedback. The second one is Weet-Bix. Weet-Bix is the shit. And if your kids aren't eating it, drinking it, or thinking about it in the morning, they should do, because Weet-Bix is the breakfast of champions. Now, finish my little spiel. Let's get into it, folks. I've got to work out how I stop sharing that, and let's get into things. All right, pay no attention. Couldn't agree more, Jeff. Haters will hate. Yeah, glad you had a little laugh, Sky. Yeah, anonymous can't even spell. All right, team, so let's get into this. I've sent out some notes, JobKeeper payment. I'm not going to read directly from this, but it'll be pretty close. The reason it'll be pretty close is it's actually quite organised. So let's kick it off. When do things start, folks? Well, things start as of 01 April. There's a bit of a myth that needs to be dispelled here. JobKeeper will not, and this is really important, won't cover wages for the month of March. You need to be registered as of the 1st of March as an employee in a business. What is a qualifying employee? A qualifying employee is part-time, full-time, or casual who's worked for you for more than 12 months. So if they were in your business as at 01 March, then they qualify. You will not receive any wages for the month of March or any compensation for the month of March. It will only be for wages paid from the month of April onwards. That is a really, really important note. As it currently stands, those dates will make things extend until the 27th of September 2020. Got the easy one out of the way. All right, so let's get into the more tricky things. Okay, what do I need to do if I want to participate? So first and foremost, you need to register. I've mentioned that last time. Registration's a piece of piss. You don't have to give them extra information at this point in time. Just remember that, please. Registration is key for the moment. How do I work out which of my employees are eligible? Okay, so really important, bottom of page 2. Is currently employed by an eligible employer. That effectively means you're running business here in Australia. Full-time, part-time, or casual. I've already mentioned that. They've got to be over the age of 16, folks. That's a big one. I kind of heard a couple of people, especially anyone that are running the Subways and the McDonald's of the world, looking at the team members that might fall under that gap. You've got to be 16 plus. You've got to be an Australian resident. And you can't be getting JobKeeper from other people. You only get one of this. You can't have two. There is only one. All right, so that's the easy bit. So we'll scroll through there. When to receive the first payment? First payment will be first week of May. This is a really important one. It's also going to be monthly in arrears. What I actually think is kind of going to happen here is part of the reason they're monthly in arrears is they're ultimately trying to establish what's happened in your business in that month, and then at the end of the month you can put in a claim for how that works. So what are the eligible payment periods? As I mentioned, so at 30th of March and starts, so 30th of March is when things kick off. At this stage, it finishes on the 27th of September. Stood down employees and I'm no longer paying them. Do I need to pay them? Yes, you need to pay them. This is not one of those scams where you can magically create shit out of thin air. there will be a requirement for you to pay your employees. There's also a situation here, folks, where this is a flat basis. Beck, I've got your comments. I'll circle back to that. We're actually kind of getting through that at the moment. And there's an alternative way to deal with that, Beck. In terms of how this works, folks, it is a flat amount. There is no, okay, I've had employees, I've paid them $200 a week and have done so for a long period of time. And as a result of that, I'm now only going to pay them $200 and I'm going to be Scrooge McDuck and I'm going to keep the rest. No, you can't do that. What if you say, well, I don't want to have to pay them $750 because they're not going to work for $750. Doesn't work that way. It is just about impossible for the government, in my opinion, to administer all of that. So as a result, it's a flat amount. Morrison was very clear that they took the view, part of why we're a democracy is that everyone gets a voice, just like our anonymous user at the start. Hope you're watching. So as a result of that, it is a flat amount that's payable. Whether your employees have historically been earning less than $750 or more than $750, it will be $750 per employee. So what if I've stood down my employees after I won March and I'm no longer paying them? So the scenario would be you've let go of your employees in March, business has suffered. That's why you've let go of your employees. As a result, you should qualify. We'll talk about qualifying in a second. That would then mean that you can reconnect with those employees and say to them, do you know what? As a result of this money coming in to reimburse me for carrying wages, I can put you on and I can find things for you to do in my business. As a result of that, I'm keen for you to come back and I'm keen for you to partake in those things. It does physically need to be paid, folks. So if you're in a situation where as of today, you have not paid someone, but you're wanting to reconnect because you do believe that you qualify and you've spoken to your accountant about qualification, then you will need a back pay element to your employee for that $750. You cannot get this money unless you pay the employee $750. That presents a cash flow challenge for people, and I will talk about that a little bit later on. Yeah, so Amir, what would happen if your employee was paid $500? You as an employer will be required to top them up. So you'll ultimately have to pay them $750. The government will then give you that $750. So there's a $250 differential there that will go on. Do you get paid $750 and then you pay them the difference? Yes, that's exactly right. You'll have to pay them the difference. What is the definition of turnover? So this is at the bottom of page 3, folks. Turnover, so it's quite an interesting one. Turnover will be defined in according to the current calculation for GST purposes and is reported on the business activity statements. It includes all taxable supplies, GST-free supplies, but not input tax supplies. This is the exact reason your March activity statement needs to be correct. Absolutely crucial that you're reporting the right and relevant information in there. The last thing you want to be doing is lodging an activity statement, then going, oh, fuck, I didn't get it at the end. I'm going to go back and lodge an amended activity statement. Not the way to go. You can't get access to this money until the start of May. Bear that in mind. So as a result, you've got a bit of time to get organised. I'd also encourage you at that point, if you're looking at turnover, and this is a big one we've been talking about internally, and I've already been saying to clients, go back and have a look at the revenue that you've reported over the last 12 months. Look at it on a monthly basis. You can pull up monthly P&Ls in whatever software program you're using. You should be overlaying that against the program that you use to run your business. If you've got a separate ERP or CRM that runs your business. As a result of that, please make sure that that you're checking both of those and comparing what they're against. In terms of what that means also, there's a concept around cash versus accruals accounting, which we'll talk about when we give the tips and tricks on how to lodge the March BAS itself. There is a difference between when did I raise an invoice and when did I get paid. Substantial difference in relation to that. I've had quite a few people say, but James, well, I just won't do all my invoices, and as a result, I'll be able to satisfy. That is not the concept here. I understand that everyone is trying to ensure that they maximize their position, The government does have and has agreed that they are making provisions and allowances in situations where you have abnormal levels of income. It needs to be business as usual. You want to be sending those invoices out so that you can be getting paid. Bear in mind the people that you've historically been dealing with, they've been in the same shitstorm that you've been in, and now this is going to start to free things up. So this will encourage creditors and debtors to talk to each other and be able to go through that. Claire, I think you're on there. Yeah, you are. Claire, if you just make sure you bank things in the Q&A, not the chat, but I'll answer that question. And the question is, if I laid someone off mid-March, do I have to give them back pay to 01 April? If you wish to qualify for the job seeker payment, the answer is yes. There is a positive obligation on the employers to do the lifting in the first instance. And the sheer example for that, guys, is God knows how many employees the government would otherwise have to directly deal with. They're trying to share the load in relation to that. So if you're an employer of one person or 1,000 people, they want to encourage to use your payroll system, in particular the single touch payroll platform that you should have, to be able to assist and deal with that. Big question there that exists. Is this turnover test related to only turnover in Australia, or does it include overseas operations? Under the GST law, only Australian-based sales are included, and therefore it's only Australian revenue that's important. Very, very critical. Beck, I'll answer your question. What about commission-only agents? So that's a really, really good guy. I'll talk about the job seeker. I will come to that. It should be in the attachments that have been emailed out. So what about commission-only agents? This is the contractor-employee debate that has existed since pretty much the dawn of time. I define the dawn of time as when I started in the accounting industry, because obviously the world revolves around me. So since the early 2000s, there's been this great debate. Am I an employee? Am I a contractor? How do I fit into that? Obviously, in the real estate game in particular, the common model that seems to be run is that everyone's commission only. And generally speaking, they're running their own corporate structure. So they're normally running a trust or a company themselves or a partnership. Sometimes they're sole traders. As a result, because you're self-employed, there are ways for you yourself to pick up the $750 a week, rather than you falling under the provisions of the real estate agent that's saying you're not an employee. And we'll talk about how that works for self-employed further on. So that's turnover test. It's also a stay tuned thing, folks. So if you delay your invoices and you're trying to make it business as usual, don't be surprised if you run out of fucking cash. I get the concept, but you need the invoices in there. What I'd be doing is making sure that the invoices are in there and understanding whether you're reporting on cash or accruals. I'll also suggest an idea, which is that if you delay your invoices and that subsequently means that you're going to have to raise the invoices in the subsequent months, there's a real debate at the moment about, once I've had a 30% decrease, what happens if my business re-increases? So I've had a really shit February, March, April, May, and then all of a sudden in June, the heavens open up and we go gangbusters again. There is actually, as of today, zero evidence in any of this to say what happens if we go back up. What I think is probably going to be the case is, because the government is paying everyone in a retrospective basis a month in arrears, i.e. they will pay your April reimbursement to you at the start of May. What is probably going to be the case is that you're going to have to check in at that point in time. And when you check in with them, you'll be saying, has my business gone up or has it gone down? That may very well be a determining factor or not. We actually don't know the answers on what happens from a revenue basis yet, and we haven't seen anything for that. I think it's pretty much the case that the vast majority of Australian business has very much suffered, unless you sell gunny rolls and hand sanitizer. And even then, your business is probably tanked a fair bit because there's a bunch of other shit that's sitting in your business that you can no longer sell. So turnover, where it's going to be critically important, if I was you in your business, I would be getting your monthly P&Ls, and I'd actually be overlaying them for the last 3 years. If it was me, I'd have a strong understanding as of right now, what is my monthly revenue every month for the last 36 months. If you don't know that in itself, maybe that says something about how you're running your business. But I'd be going and getting that data. That data needs to be overlaid. It needs to be overlaid between what's in your financials, what's in the platform that runs your business, what's in your BASs, and what's in your tax returns. You're going to have to overlay all of those pieces of information. Why would I do that? Because it's the studious thing to do. You don't want to be in a situation where you get 2 months down the track, you're scrambling for things, and then you're like, oh, fuck, I don't know the answer in relation to that. I think very much, folks, you want to be in a situation where you're informed and you understand those things, and it's readily accessible and easy to find. As a result, go back and do it now. It's Easter long weekend. We're all small to medium business owners here in Australia, which means we're probably working at some point anyway. You're at home, bored, careless, gives you an excuse to get away from the husband or the misso. Go and dig that information out and start overlaying that to see what that looks like. So that ticks the turnover. What else have we got here on the chat? Whoa, okay, here we go. Beck, we've dealt with Beck. Yeah, our shareholders. Okay, pay no attention. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Amir. Okay, are all shareholders eligible to the 750? Good question, Gareth. The answer is no. So shareholders, and we speak about this later on in here, if you're a shareholder in a company and you receive your wage remuneration effectively by virtue of a dividend, there is only one shareholder per business that can be in receipt of the $750. I don't quite think that's fair. And I think they might have some challenges in that space. Generally speaking, if you've got a complex family group or structure where there's more than one style of shareholder, there may be alternative mechanisms to establish the same thing ultimately. But as it stands, they're saying it's one per entity. So if you have a trust or you have a company and you get paid via a trust distribution, or you get paid via a dividend, or you are a partner in a partnership and you get paid by virtue of a partnership distribution, only one person in that entire gambit will be entitled to that 750. All right, so Amir getting rid of that one, Gus getting rid of that one, right of that one. Desley, what happens if January to March were in line with last year, but slightly down, not 30%, but is likely April onwards going to be down significantly? Good question, Desley. Still make sure you're registered, and in the subsequent periods when your business receives a downturn or experiences a downturn, at that point it will kick in for you and payment will go on from there. It's also important that you don't get it back paid, folks. So if you get to the second week in May and you decide that things aren't good, and you've not bothered to lodge, and I've seen people doing that where are like, I don't need the money right now, so I'm not going to worry about this. In my opinion, there'll be no ability to really go backwards and lodge amended shit. You're just waving a red flag at a bull to the government to say, hey, I wasn't organised enough. Now I'm going to put my hand out. I would be getting organised now. And once it is the case that that dip is definitely there, then it will apply from that day forwards. It won't apply backwards. Amir, you can, from 01 April until you get the money from the government, if you pay employees less than 750, for example, 500 due to cash flow problems, no, you don't get it, Amir. You have to pay the full 750. Later on, we'll talk about how that works with getting money from either the banks. So the banks are required or are being encouraged by the government to relax their lending impositions to be able to give you that short-term money. And there is state government loans and funding packages that will do that, which I'll talk about in a bit more. Cheryl, superannuation will also impact cash flow. Yeah, it will, Cheryl, you're right. Superannuation is not payable on the 750, so we need to get very clear on that. It's effectively treated as a wage. Are directors of a company eligible? Amir, I've just spoken about that, so I'll hit that one off. Superannuation will also impact cash flow. Yeah, it is. The statutory lodgement date is the 28th of April for the March quarter. I've been saying to clients that they should be holding that money in a COVID-19 account if they were otherwise going to make that payment. I feel like the government may turn around and say with statutory obligations that from an employer's perspective, they might be given a bit more time or leniency as to how they deal with that. That's a really big call, and I'm caveating all of that because you're talking about employee entitlements. I think it's a stay tuned space. So as a result, they haven't brought anything out yet, which may mean it's a bit hard for them to retrospectively change it. But any of those savings measures, you stick it in your COVID-19 account and you make sure you pay it by the statutory date as it currently stands. Staff earns less than $750. Do we need to top them up for March? No, it's only from the 30th of March onwards, Alison, that you'll need to top them up. So not for the month of March. Dave, what happens if you pay each shareholder a wage each week and they're still entitled to the job? Yeah, so being in receipt of a dividend versus being in receipt of wages are two completely separate things. If you're an employee in a corporate structure, that means you fall into the realms of being a job keeper. Very, very important for everyone to get clear on how they derive their remuneration. Great question, Dave. So if you're on wages, then it's definitely the case that it can apply. So what about super if you normally pay less than $750? Oh, anonymous attendee. With a bit of luck, you're not the pelican that was providing all of the good feedback last seminar, which accounted for 0.0005% of the survey group, by the way. So that was fantastic. What about the super? No. So effectively what they're saying is anything up to the $750, there'll be no superannuation payable on. It's the amounts over that exist in relation to an employment contract that will need to be paid for. Now, we're all still trying to work out how that integrates into a payroll system. So that's a more specific for your circumstances ultimate answer. But as a baseline, that $750 payment will not be the case that superannuation is payable on that. All right, team, first payment, who's eligible? If I've stood down my employees, and do I need to pay them? So this is on page 3. Yes, you need to, blah, blah, blah. Business has only just started. Yeah, good question. Top of page 4. Business has only just started, or my business has lumpy income. How can I assess that my turnover has fallen? Don't be a dickhead. That's probably a really good start. I'm seeing so many instances where even with potential new clients trying to game this thing, guys, this is not the game. Like, really, we're not here to gain things for the sake of it. The intent's very clear. If your business has suffered, they will be finding a way for you to fall into that category. As a result, I read from you what Treasury says. To establish that a business has faced or is likely to face a 30% or 50% more decrease relative to the turnover period of an earlier year. Where a business was not in operation a year earlier, or where the turnover a year earlier was not representative of the usual or average turnover. So when I said to you, why don't you get the last 36 months worth of turnover? What about super if you normally pay less than $750 a week? Yeah. Is the $750 a week taxable? Yes, it is. It's like wages. It is literally like wages, Alison. It has to be processed like wages accordingly. So yeah, there'll be a requirement to withhold. How we do that through payroll, our internal payroll team is stressing out a little bit at the moment over how we do that. We're going to be doing some specific webinar and content stuff this coming week on how to do that as more information is released. Back to the turnover question. Your business didn't exist in the year prior. This is where you should know your averages. All right, so 36 months, go and find your 36 months to know what your turnover looked like each month. But then do things like weighted averages. So what's Q1 versus Q2 versus Q3 versus Q4? What does that look like if I map out financial year versus calendar year? What does that look like if I use an average? What does that look like if I take an outlier month for the year and apply an average? What does it look like if I start using Z-scores and standard deviations? Whilst you don't want to overcomplicate it, I think, folks, the case in point, as they say down here, is the tax commissioner will also have the discretion to set out alternative tests that would establish eligibility in specific circumstances. E.g., eligibility may be established as soon as the business ceases or significant operation curtails its operations. There will be some tolerance where employers in good faith estimate a 30% or 50% more fall in turnover, but actually experience a slightly smaller fall. I personally think there's going to be some sort of platform that you're going to have to lodge stuff on because there's no way on earth they're going to be able to give you all this financially, or we're going to be able to submit all this financial information. It's just, it's impossible. I think there'll be some sort of declaration we'll all have to make electronically for that, which will allow you to take those things into consideration. Here's what happened last year. Here's another thing, folks. Like I've said, I'm here to support everyone in the month of April on the house. So don't go lodging shit and saying, oh, well, I thought my one-word answer was a great response. Those of you that have ever attempted to do a private ruling with the ATO, if anyone's ever told you that to obtain a private ruling in relation to some sort of function or some sort of clarification on a task is less than, at the very least, a couple of $1,000s to go and do, they're a peanut. And the reason they're a peanut is the government needs to understand your position. So one-word responses here are ridiculous. Frame them correctly, have them checked. Like I said, my time here is for free in this space. We've also got the team that's here to be able to help bounce off you what those ideas are like. So if there's been a genuine situation where the business didn't exist and you can exemplify how that worked, then absolutely, on face value, there seems to be the case that this is for you. If you've acquired a business, so basically if your March BAS is not down 30%, you can then use March 19 versus March 20 or April. Yeah, that's exactly right, Amir. You're exactly right. So that gets rid of those. My turnover hasn't decreased, but I believe it will in the subsequent months. Yeah, so like I said, register, make sure you do that. Can I apply in the later months? Yes, you can. Can't be backdated. My business is still operating, employees are still working. How will my payments affect them? In many cases, business won't change. Like I said, you need to pay them $1,500 a week. And that, again, is also outlined at the bottom of page 4. All right, what if I pay my employees more than $1,500 a week? You will only be reimbursed for $1,500. Can owners give a personal loan to the business so they can afford to pay their staff and their own PAYG and then get repaid from the government reimbursement? Anonymous user, yes, that's how that will work. That is exactly how that'll work. And to that end, folks, that's actually what the banks are doing. So the banks are around at the moment ponying up small loans or unsecured loans to everyone so that they're actually able to go and pay payroll. And then you'll make the payments now and then the government will spot you at the end. But if you're paying everyone more than $1,500 a week, then the relevant award and agreement that exists on an employment agreement side, then that'll continue. If I've stood down my employees without pay after 1 March, can I back pay them? Yes. As I said, you'll have to back pay them to the start of 30 March 2020 forwards. I let my employees go after 01 March. Can I rehire them? Yes. This is part of the concept. The government is wanting the employer and the employee to reconnect. So encourage you guys to do so. I actually was on Triple M during the week having this conversation. Excuse me, part of the logic here, folks, is that the government doesn't want 87 million people lining up at Centrelink. We've all seen the videos and the footage of every, I'm going to use the word peanut or pelican again, lining up to be able to say, I need my money straight away. And then they got to the front of the line and realized that they couldn't be processed anyway. The government is trying to use both the employer's payroll infrastructure framework to be able to pay everyone, as well as it's the case that that for Centrelink that will apply for the job seekers. So reconnect where you can. What happens if I don't have the money to continue paying my eligible employees? So, good question. First and foremost, you should be talking to your accountant about what your options are in relation to that. I think you're getting confused. Yeah, $750 per week, Shannon. $1,500 per fortnight. Yep, you're absolutely right. So if I've said that incorrectly, folks, apologies. Shan, you can come and have a gig in my office. That'd be fantastic. Maybe it's Easter eggs. What was I going to say there? Cash flow. So the concepts with cash flow is all the major banks are turning around and spotting everyone from what I've seen so far and offering you that month payroll position. Rates seem quite eligible as well. Well, what's the supporting documentation and the proof to be lodged for the job keeper? Amir, I'd imagine it'll be some sort of stat deck that says this money's physically left my bank account, as pays ordinarily would. So if you don't have the money, there's two components to that. One is it's the case that, yes, a lot of the banks are offering these cheap loans, and they're quite reasonable. Like the rates seem to be 4 or 5%. They're small amounts. They're locked in over a longer fixed term, so it's an easy way for the bank to be able to sell you some money. Generally finding it's quite specific to things. It's not actually for business operations as a whole. There is a specific keeper element that they're looking at. In addition to that, the Queensland government, as an example, New South Wales government, Victorian government, are all providing funding at very good rates. I actually said to clients, my preference, I think, is to use the state funding first. It seems cheaper and the terms seem heaps better, unsecured versus secured. So look at the state government stuff before you look at the bank stuff, in my opinion. I'm not sure whether the banks will take that into consideration or won't take that into consideration as well. It seems like the state government stuff seems to be quite beneficial. What happens if my employee resigns? Well, that means that they don't get paid. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I hired an employee after 1 March. Can I receive the JobKeeper payment? No. This is a big one. People gaming the system again. I've had so many people talk about backdating payroll. Couple of things here, folks. If you put an employee on, they generally sign what's called a TFN declaration, the tax file number declaration. You should be getting everyone to sign one of those the minute they sign up. These days, a lot of the payroll platforms are automatic and electronic. So if you start backdating things, you need to ask yourself the question, did they go through the TFN declaration or not? Because if they didn't and you didn't fill it in, you better have a damn good reason as to why it's the case that the government should turn around and accept a backdated application. I can't see it being that easy, folks. I'm always happy to look at as many options as possible, but you really need to ask yourself here, what happens if I get this wrong? They haven't made it exactly clear what they're going to do. My gut tells me the penalties are going to be pretty severe. So there's a genuine intent aspect to that. Look, if you simply didn't register because something more than the dog ate my homework or my cat died, sorry, cat lovers, or do you know what, I just didn't feel like it, or I employ 1,000 people and I was skiing in Japan and I completely forgot. Bullshit. Make sure that you're in a situation where if there's a legitimate reason, health, family, COVID-19 situation you were dealing with in your own business, and something just got unfortunately missed. Those things happen in business. It happens for all of us. There's a term for that. It's called shit happens. Then I think the communication piece will be nice and strong, and that may otherwise apply. But if you weren't on the books at 1 March and you weren't using single touch payroll to do that, then you really need to ask yourself, am I going to fit into those things? Bottom of page 5, I purchased a business in the last 12 months. That's a great example, especially where you have business A and business B, and there's an asset sale, one between the other. So technically the employees are paid under the new business. The answer is that it will be treated how the historical business has traded. So if you've been in a situation where you've inherited a business, bought a business in the last 12 months and you're worried about your employees not being involved, the question is how and where was their longevity in relation to the previous owner of the business, and as a result, does that apply? Amir, can the owners give anonymous, can the owners give a personal loan to the business so they can afford to pay the staff rate? Yes, I've answered that. $750 per week is taxable. So if you're not set up for single touch payroll, really good question, Amir. You've got to provide examples for or an understanding of why you're not using it, and you need to get registered using it. Every business in Australia should be on single touch payroll. And if you're not, there should be a good reason for it. But the government, in my opinion, will be using single touch payroll to make sure they monitor this thing as it goes out. Page 6, I've got casual employees from a member of my corporate group. Look, it's got to be from the specific employer if you've got a series of entities that you employ people through. What should I do if I want to rehire an eligible employee who received a redundancy package? That's an interesting one. The simple answer is if an eligible employee has received a redundancy package and you wish to rehire them, you'll need to consult with the employee and consider prevailing workplace agreements. That's really a question for the employment lawyer. what I would imagine could be the case is there'd be some sort of deed that says, well, hang on, hey, look, you know, you lost your gig, but I tell you what, that gig can either recommence, and maybe we actually need to do something with our payroll. I'm not entirely sure how that bit works, but I would think that there could be an option around that with some sort of deed that says, look, due to all the exceptional circumstances going on, here's what happens. This is what we want to reinstate, and both parties agree and acknowledge it. So as a result of that, it's about having that conversation. There's been a couple of employers that have handled that whole thing pretty poorly. The vast majority have handled it exceptionally well, and that's fantastic to see. But a few relationships have been burnt through that. Even if it has been burnt, who gives a shit? This is about making sure everyone gets through. They worked with you for some point in time, and there would have been a reason they were doing that. Don't be too proud. Go back, open the conversation up. Hey, look, we got this wrong. We don't know how to predict this. Here's what we're doing in our own business. Here's a list a mile long of all those things. As a result of that, here's what we want to look like, and here's how that may apply to you. Will the ATO use the JobKeeper payments to offset a BAS debt? No, they won't. It's a flow through. So the concept is to facilitate wages to the team. Can I receive the JobKeeper payment if employees are receiving work cover? No. So they're the main ones. All right, so that comes through 5, 6, all the employees. So I think the important thing to then consider, folks, obviously on the employee side, if that doesn't fit into the case, where do your employees go? Your employees do go to the job seeker function. That's the biggest one. I'm an eligible employee in an eligible business. How much do I receive? $1,500 a fortnight. I've taken up other work after being stood down. Will I receive payment? Yes. The job keeper payment is not income tested. However, big flag here, folks. Big flag, big flag, big flag. You can't have more than one employer giving you job keeper. As a result of that, I have a question for your seminar. Oh, cool. Thanks. Why don't you get on the chat bot? Registered on your end. All right. Thanks, Anne. You're going to fire some things through. I need to find this live, wherever that is. It's not happening. Oh, that all sounds too hard. I'll just come back here. Yes. So if they've taken up work somewhere else and they're getting some casual work, then technically they can be getting the JobKeeper payment in relation to their previous employment. Been a couple of people have had that, or people have just been gone and done some contractor stuff. If at 01 March you fall into the provision of part-time, full-time, or casual for more than 12 months, then you can still be in receipt of that payment. I was employed on 01 March, but stood down, and I've applied for income support, such as Job Seeker. Then yes, you need to contact Services Australia and let them know what's going on. Really, really important, folks. Don't try and double dip and claim that on both sides of the deck. And that'll be a constant communication piece. This is not set and forget. Bear that in mind. If the situation changes, you need to make an informed decision and update the position. If I'm in a growth stage and I had signed a heap of work and employed a heap of new people to do it, then more than 30% of that work pushed their contract out because of Corona, can I receive payment? Really good question, even if my turnover is larger than last year. So, Em, I think we were talking about that earlier when we were saying the commissioner has the discretion to be able to say, if your situation is unique and you can demonstrate what that is, then yes, there should be eligibility that's involved. Don't come up with some bullshit scheme. If you can genuinely demonstrate, here's what happened and this is why, I can't see how the government is going to knock you back. I dare say where they're going to knock you back is if you provide them with some one-word bullshit response that doesn't factor into account all those things. Will my employer pay superannuation? No superannuation guarantee payments are required to be paid on the additional payment because of the JobKeeper. I started work after 01 March. No, you don't get it. 01 March is the day. I have multiple employers. Will I receive multiple payments? No, you won't. You only get one. This is like that situation when you ask your mum as a kid, for a bowl of ice cream after dinner? The answer was pretty simple. You only got one bowl. You didn't get two. Do you know a good employment lawyer that we can use, be considering when will be considered when charging us their fees during this time? We have reduced all employment rates and hours in line with the JobKeeper payments from this week. Yes, Lizette. Mark Bunch, BE Employment Law. He is the guy and he is the go-to. If you're an employment lawyer, you're getting smashed at the moment. Mark Bunch, BE Employment Law. All right, Emma. All right, any other questions? No, some of my idiot mates are trying to interrupt my live. That's really good. Thanks, boys. Good on you. I think I'm also going to turn this music off because it's driving me nuts. 0. There we go. Oh, you don't have to continue to hear it. So just to clarify, 3 shareholders. Yes, that's right, Gus, but you're all on salaries, so you all qualify. If you're on salaries, you qualify. The dividend thing is completely irrelevant, and I'll give you a buzz about it afterwards. But yes, you will all qualify because you're technically employees as well as shareholders. Multiple employers, so you only get one. It's like the ice cream principle. I am a casual employed in the business. I own a change in the last 12 months. Yeah, that's fine. If you've worked in the old business and you work in a new one, then that's the case. It'll apply. All right, that's that. I'm working in a temporary visa. Yeah, this is Morrison's kind of value Australians principle. You've got to be an Aussie citizen, hold a permanent visa, or be in a special category, subclass 444 as at 01 March to be able to get that. Employee that's on mat leave, will they qualify? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that question was in here somewhere. Lizette, I'm on paid leave, employees, where did I see that? 7, 8. 15, I'm on unpaid leave or paid leave. Will I receive the payment? Yes, you will. Workers' comp. I'm receiving parental leave pay or dad and partner pay through Services Australia. Am I eligible? For the period you're receiving parental leave, you will not be eligible. So the principle would be, Lizette, that they'll continue their obligations. Once that paid maternity leave finishes, technically they'll be an employee. As a result of being an employee, then they'll continue to get paid. Can your salary sacrifice? Yes, you can. If you want to do that, then you're more than welcome to. All right, page 9. Thanks, Catherine. Beck, if you qualify for the keeper, you still also qualify for the advanced drawdown of the 20K on your super. Depends on your individual circumstances, Beck. I believe that may in fact be an option for you. Absolutely. There's more being clarified in relation to what's happening with that. Diana, if we owe GST, does the JobKeeper payment go towards this debt? Di, I reckon Damo must be you because his ears are really good at not listening. Maybe we should get him some bunny ears. The simple answer is no, that's not the case. The payment for the wages is the payment for the wages, folks. So it won't be offset against any other debt. So I'll dismiss those. Paid maternity leave. What about the keeping in touch clause of 10 days, which you're allowed? Amir, I don't actually understand that question. Mate, so I might talk offline about that one unless you can bang in a whole heap of stuff that makes it a little bit easier to understand. All right, self-employed. Here's the one. If you're self-employed, stop. Yeah, Lolly's rubbing off on you. I wouldn't want him to be rubbing off on you, Di. I could think of better things than having that guy rubbing off on you or rubbing on you. I'm self-employed. Yes. The answer is if your turnover's dropped, you're technically a keeper. So if you're a sole trader, then it's the case that this can apply to you. You need an ABN on 12 March. Bear that in mind. Don't the system and try and backdate ABN registrations, please, folks. Mick and Lindy. James, what's the go with beneficiaries rather than directors? Is only one eligible? Yes, Mick. So there is only one employee, one JobKeeper per trust. So if you've got a situation where you have a series of beneficiaries, only one will be in receipt. I don't think that's fair, and I'm not fully convinced that they've really thought that one out. As a result of that, I think there's a bit of stay here, stay tuned space. Normally, to me, if there's more than one beneficiary in a trust, there's normally a couple of other structures floating around. So it could be the case that there could be a sole trader in one entity, or a services entity in another, or a payroll entity in another. And so there may be alternative mechanisms to ensure that that's satisfied. Amir is sending me something that looks really complex, paid maternity leave, which I'm going to leave alone. Yeah. Yeah, look, Amir, I don't know the answer in relation to that, mate. I'm really sorry. Surprisingly, folks, I do know a lot of things. There are a lot of things I unfortunately don't know. Amir, more than happy, send me an email, mate, and I'm more than happy to have a look at that with you in more detail at the end and work out a solution, because there's got to be one. Back to sole traders. So, folks, you've got to have an ABN, 12 March. Make sure of that, really important. You've got to have lodged the tax return in the previous year. Is that the case? Again, this is this whole new business thing. So if you've started out your business in the current year, what does that look like? This is part of the whole sniff test. So let's make sure of that. Let's look at what our monthly revenues are like, and let's see whether that can accurately reflect those things or not. You also can't be receiving the JobKeeper payments somewhere else of another business. You've got to be over the age of 16. You've got to be an Aussie citizen. You've got to or have a visa or a subclass visa 444. So if I'm self-employed and I'm a partner in a partnership, can each partner receive one? No, I've spoken about that. It's only one as it currently stands. Trusts I've just spoken to. I'm a company director that receives director's fees. Am I eligible? Only one director will be eligible. Same with shareholders. I receive rental income as a landlord, but I'm not registered as a business. Am I eligible? No, you are not. This is for employers and employees, this scheme. I'm self-employed. How do I apply? Google self-employed ATO JobKeeper payment. You'll be asked to provide your ABN and a single tax file number and a declaration of business activity statement. That's where you want to be talking to your accountant about what's happening and what's going on. I am self-employed and also have a job. Am I eligible for JobKeeper? An individual can only receive JobKeeper payments from one source. However, if you are eligible for JobKeeper payment, you can also receive income from other sources, including your job. Will the JobKeeper payments be included in child support? It's included in adjustable taxable income. Compliance, here's the big one. This is the bottom of page 11, folks. Program will be subject to ATO compliance and audit activities. There's a positive obligation here, folks. So I dare say it's the case that they may not be auditing everything straight away, but at some point you could expect a knock on the door, and you need to make sure that information stacks up. We all know when we're running a business, we get down the track and we kind of forget what we did at that point in time. Document everything thoroughly. Go and create a COVID-19 folder that you can go and put all those things in relation to this into. Go and do that and make sure of it. What's the government going to do to ensure compliance and people don't manipulate their turnover? So here's how it reads, folks. Bottom of page 11. The ATO will provide guidance to help businesses self-assess their eligibility. This will include circumstances that do not fit neatly into more general circumstances that the majority of businesses are in. So if you invoice every 2 weeks and then all of a sudden you decide to not invoice for 4 months, I strongly suggest you might have some difficulties there. Needs to be business as usual as much as possible. The government will include appropriate integrity rules to prevent employers from entering into artificial schemes in order to get inappropriate access to payments. I very much think that's a stay tuned, folks. I can only see them releasing more information in relation to what that looks like, and is the reason to demonstrate why it's absolutely critical that you're across your information and you know very much what it is and what it isn't. What if directors' fees go through PAYG? Then they're normal wages, Claire. They're not directors' fees. Directors' fees ordinarily are accrued and booked in accounts, and they're not dealt with in the ordinary single-touch payroll functions. So that will become different. So understand the differences between those two. Yes, Samir, thanks. Thanks. All right, folks. So that's kind of everything on JobKeeper, JobSeeker. Keep punching things into the Q&A if you like. What I am going to do at the same time is I'm actually going to, what am I going to do here? I'm going to go to this page, and how do I do that? I'm going to share that screen. All right, so March BAS is coming up, folks. Critically important for you to get that right, in my opinion. My humble opinion. Hopefully we get a bit of feedback so I can eat the wheat bix and get the feedback. Breakfast of Champions. So if we kind of come halfway through page 1, I've put in here a bunch of free stuff, which also demonstrates it's not that easy to do, to consider what your lodgements are going to look like. Here's a checklist for you to look at what needs to happen in your March activity statement. If you've got any questions or queries, punch them in as we go. Provisional income tax instalment variations to clawback tax in prior periods. I would be looking at this not just in any business that's been affected for you. If you've got a group of companies, I'd be looking at it in all of them, even if some of those groups have not been, or companies have not been affected. I'd be assessing it across the board. Here's another thing too, folks. Just because you get your provisional income tax instalments back, don't go and spend them. Don't go and be in a situation where you don't actually need it, and it's a good idea for you to go and do things with that money. Be very, very cautious with it. Stick it in that COVID-19 treasure chest account or war chest account that I keep talking about. Because at some point, we will have to pay tax. It will be deferred. It will be down the road. But we want to make sure we manage that. And I think part of that provisional tax situation, folks, will be your pre-30 June tax planning to establish where am I at for the year from a tax perspective, so that you're strong on that. GST reconciliations, these are the big ones. So there is 6 things, 7 things, 8 things, folks, that I can't tell you how many times we have people who are in the internal role with clients who will go and hit the BAS submit button. If you're one of these people that's guilty of hitting the BAS submit button, I strongly suggest you don't. There's always an annual reconciliation at the end of the year, especially those that we deal with in this space, and we're always communicating with our clients around any changes in GST during the year. The real important and easy example, folks, and I'm going to do a specific webinar on this, is if you do a quarter and then you get into the next quarter, and for some reason, when you're in that next quarter, you realize in the previous quarter, some shit should have been changed. If you go and change it, which is fine because it more accurately reflects what's going on, here's an idea. How does the government know that? Time and time again, we see with client situations where there's technically a requirement to lodge an amended activity statement. This is not a flag to say, go and lodge an amended activity statement. This is a flag to say, if you change data in a previous period, there needs to be a format, way, and mechanism for you to encapture that information in subsequent activity statements or back in that previous activity statement. So if you're guilty of hitting the BAS submit button, there's actually 4 things that you should be reconciling that against, which I've outlined here, which is a specific GST detail report for your system against your general ledger, against your balance sheet balances, against your sub ledger. If you don't understand what those 4 things mean, hit me up and send me an email after this, because if you don't know what they mean, then I dare say there's a good chance there could be something missing in that, which may mean we go back and find additional bits of GST that could be refunded. You have the ability to go back 4 years, folks. For those that get all their compliance work done with us, that is performed on at very least an annual basis, so you will know where you're at in relation to those, and the relevant adjustments are always performed. But if you're a non-MWM client, ask your accountant when you get to 30 June and they do their annual reconciliations, what information do they give you in relation to that? And what does that reconciliation piece look like? Because if you've changed bookkeepers, you've changed financial controllers, wife stopped doing it, husband stopped doing it, you changed software platforms, you changed the industry types, you got more employees, your business changed in the last 4 years, or there is a way in which that information going in has changed, there's a good chance that somewhere in amongst that, something's been mixed up. So if you've got some spare time, start looking at these things. Cash versus accruals. For income tax versus GST, when did I receive the money? When did I raise the invoice? Two very, very important mechanisms. Are you reporting on the correct one? Writing off bad debts and GST adjustments for that, there's a specific way in your financial statements and in your activity statement that you need to provide that information. As a result, do look at those things. Consider moving GST to monthly, not quarterly. If you find yourself in a situation where you could have a series of GST refunds from here forwards, we could be lodging a more frequent activity statement. This is a real classic one, guys. Girls, gender neutral, fluid, whatever we want to call it, avatar. Bank account details are correct. The government does a great job in many areas around the stimulus. They're still the government. If you punch shit in somewhere a long time ago about what your details are, and you change banks or you changed accounts, probably a good idea for you to check in on what that is. Decreasing adjustment functions correctly. So if you're going to provide adjustments and amendments in an activity statement, there is also a specific way for you to deal with that. I would encourage you to jump on the ATO website, look at that. Don't be someone who thinks they know it all. Have conversations with your accountants about what that looks like. Paul, hi, the government said the job seeker was not to be assets tested, but it appears that when you go on a claim, there are a lot of questions about what your assets are and your partner hold, even asking how much money you have in your wallet at the time. Yeah, really good question, Paul. I dare say the answer to that is you actually shouldn't be completing that without the assistance of our office to guide you through the very reasons for why those principles do or don't exist and ensure you're in the right field and function. The team would be more than happy to go through that with you during the week. The plan is very much not for it to be assets tested or means tested. The concept is to get that money out to everyone. Do bear in mind the government is using a standard government platform that they've had to curtail for this. Security bonds, that's a big one, folks. Everyone's kind of talking about rent and what's going on there. If you have collected bonds or deposits from tenants and you are looking at using those or not, you need to get clear on what the GST position does or doesn't look like for that. Lizette, can you type it into the Q&A, please? I can't see anything in the chat bot whilst I'm sharing my screen for some reason. Q&A, there it is. No, gone. All right, so that's that one. Complete a full 4-year GST review. If you haven't been a client of ours for 4 years, there's a good chance we've actually gone back and done that with you as well. But you have the ability to review those things. Ensure the correct position for GST versus margin scheme applies. Can't tell you how many times I have that conversation with clients in and around the fact that, hey, what's going on here? Are we clear on the GST position of what your income looks like? Also, if you're a grouped business, what does degrouping look like or what does grouping look like? Single touch payroll, again, I've touched on that one. There is a series of reconciliations that should go on in relation to that. Again, if you just hit the payroll button, there's a good chance something in amongst there might not be correct. As a result, folks, we want to be overlaying that in a series of ways, which I've provided the reconciliation pieces there for. Do your director's wages need to be looked at in the current year without jeopardising the $750? So if you are on wages, do you actually need all of those wages for the year or not? I personally, I'm looking at that in our own business at the moment, and it could very well be the case that there's an adjustment in relation to what your wages are as an owner in that business so that we can maximise this. Fuel tax credits, that's another big one. This is also about making sure that we pick up the maximum amount of fuel tax credits, which is an excise rebate for anyone in the relevant industries. If you buy fuel, then it may very well apply to you, and you get a credit back for a component of the litres of fuel that you've used in your business every month or every quarter. ATO payment plans, general interest charge, they're being very generous in that space. They have specific hotlines. They're also call centres, guys. So they're putting more and more people on as it currently stands. Be mindful of that when you're talking to them. Always get a reference number. I can't tell you how many times I see that with people. Don't get a reference number. Oh, I spoke to Joe at the ATO. Well, I dare say there's 87,000 Joes at the ATO. Get a specific reference number. They can give you that. If you're having some significant challenges, they can give you an employee number. They won't give you their specific name, but they will give you an employee number so that you can escalate those things. Also, make sure you're up to date with MyGov and AusKey and the changes for that. On our website, we put a specific blog on how to make sure that that is all up to date so that you can easily deal with the ATO. Above all else, folks, we're here to support you. That's the guts of all those things. I don't know exactly what we'll be doing from a webinar basis next week, but I'm sure as the week unfolds, more will happen. And remember, folks, as I've said down the bottom, during my last post, an announcement in episode 3, which is that all the advice for myself that is directly provided to you when COVID-19 related, it's on the house. I'm here, and we as a practice are here to support you in April. Check the minus T's and C's, which is just about doing the right thing. I'm going to stop that. I'll come back and say, folks, at that point in time, we are kind of done and dusted. 15 minutes early, which is a bit of a change. I think we're getting on top of all these things, and as a result, the world's starting to die down and come back to normal. So thank you very much, Alison. I really appreciate it. Folks, is there anyone else that wants anything to add? Thanks, Dave. Thanks very much, mate. See what's happening in the Facebook world. Have we got anything that's going on there? No. Which one do we want? We want the MWM one. See more. As usual, very professional, extremely responsible. Thanks, Lizette. Love the tie and the budgies. Thanks, Amir. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, guys. All the thanks starting to happen. Fantastic. Thanks, Beck. All right, team. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you. As a result, everyone stay safe. Don't eat too many Easter eggs. And no doubt we'll all be in touch soon. All right. Thanks, team.